The Oklahoma Sooners have a massive advantage that I don't think a lot of people are talking about. Maybe you're just missing it because, well, in 2023, this was a room that, although we talked about it preseason and we talked about the advantage Oklahoma would have there, it just didn't pan out. And I think it still hurts a lot of Sooner fans to talk about. But I think this is the year you're going to see that advantage take over for Oklahoma. And it's as simple as this. Javonte Barnes is back. You've heard it in Falls Camp and the scrimmages and the practices. Javonte Barnes has been a dude that everybody has been impressed with. You even heard in an interview that Sooner Scoop did with Gavin Sawchuk. I am going to link that video below, so make sure you check out with Eddie and George. We're talking about in fall camp and the fall practices, and then also what Gavin Sawchuk had to say on Javonte Barnes. But again, it doesn't stop the narrative that everybody thinks Javonte Barnes has been an impressive back this fall camp. And if you remember back in the spring, we talked about another back in Caleb Hicks that was impressive for Oklahoma and a guy that is probably going to be seeing the field more often than not this season. So Oklahoma's got a couple bell cows in this back room, and I think you're going to be able to finally see that 1A and 1B tandem that we were talking about so much with Gavin Sawchuk and Javonte Barnes. Gavin Sawchuk's likely going to be the running back that starts the game every single game this year. But there are going to be times where Javonte Barnes is going to play a very crucial role, and you might see him play a little bit more because Javonte Barnes is one of those guys that I think he could beat you up a little bit more on that defensive line, wear defensive lines down, and give Gavin Sawchuk the break that he needs for the offensive line to create those holes so that he can get out in space and break away for some of those long runs that we've seen Gavin Sawchuk be able to do so far. Now, here's the deal. Javonte Barnes is a guy that not only I think can just run it up the middle for you and play that pound and ground kind of football that you like to see. He's also a guy that can catch it out of the backfield just like Caleb Hicks. So if you look at this running back room and you look at the depth that Oklahoma has, you brought in a transfer in Sam Franklin out of it was some Texas school, right? Some small Texas school. 223 carries, 1,378 yards, and 11 touchdowns last year. It's nice to have a guy like that in your room. And then you've got the number one running back in the class from last year's recruiting cycle in Taylor Tatum, who by all means throughout the summer, all the way into fall camp, and a little bit there, he has been absolutely impressive for a freshman. Now, I was under the impression that maybe Taylor Tatum wouldn't play as much, right? He's a true freshman. You would want to be able to redshirt him a little bit and save up some of that talent, especially since the running back room is so deep. It sounds like he's going to be too athletic to keep off the field. Man, he's a two-sport athlete, so we'll have to see how that's going to work out for him. And then you've got Caleb Hicks, Emeka Megwa, Xavier Robinson. I don't think you're going to see a lot of Andy Bass this season. The real reason is Andy Bass I don't think you rush him back from his injury. But Javonte Barnes is the story of the day. He's the story of fall camp because back in 2022, especially in that Florida State game, well, what we saw from him, I think everybody had these high expectations that Gavin Sawchuk and Javonte Barnes were going to be the leadership, the future leadership in that room. Javonte Barnes, if you guys remember, back in 2022, behind Eric Gray, 116 carries, 519 yards. Remember, 2022 was the last year Oklahoma had a running back go for more than 1,000 yards. And Eric Gray, he's making some strides in the NFL for the New York Giants. So here's my deal. I think what you're going to have in this running back room is Gavin Sawchuk, the 1A, Javonte Barnes, the 1B, just like we talked about last season. You'll probably see very similar numbers to what you saw in 2022 with Eric Gray and Gavin Sawchuk, probably in that 1,300 mark. But I think you're going to see Javonte Barnes replicate the 500 yards, maybe even a little bit more. I'm kind of thinking he's going to be more on the 750 side, but you can probably say anywhere between 500 to 650 to be safe. But I think Javonte Barnes is going to surpass those expectations. And then you're going to see Caleb Hicks. I think he's going to be that comes in for about 250 to 300 yards. And if you're doing that, if you're Oklahoma and you're running the rock that well, One, I think it helps your offensive line a little bit because it's going to help alleviate with some of those run block schemes. It's going to be able to help them save up some of those energy for the pass block. Additionally, it's going to help Jackson Arnold, right? Because if you're not passing the ball the majority of the time, like I bet you probably run it more than passing. I'd say it's probably going to be a 60-40 split or 60-40 split in favor of the run game, which helps out Jackson Arnold because it's going to keep the defense on their toes, knowing that Oklahoma is just not going to be slinging the rock around the field every single time they step out on the field. And when you've got weapons like Gavin Sawchuk, let's say he goes down just due to wear and tear for one game this season. Well, you've got a guy like Javante Barnes and Taylor Tatum and Caleb Hicks and Xavier Robinson and Sam Franklin and Emeka Megwa that can all step up and be dudes for you in that one game. It's going to be hard for defenses to be able to come in and plan around Oklahoma's running back room and what they're going to be able to do from an offensive scheme with those guys. So the importance of Javante Barnes being back this season and potentially returning back to that 2022 form where we saw Javante Barnes being the future of the Oklahoma running back position, I think that's important. And I think that's a huge advantage for Oklahoma. One that if we're not talking about it, maybe other teams aren't talking about it either. And you roll into SEC play and you're catching everybody with the pants down a little bit. You're going to have to keep everybody on their toes towards the middle of the season. It's just going to be an absolute bloodbath for Oklahoma on the offensive side if everything goes the way that we expect it to go. And I think this offensive line is going to be pretty dang good, meaning they're going to give Javante Barnes, Gavin Sawchuk the time that they need, the holes that they need to be able to go for some of those big running plays. And if they're able to run the defensive line down a little bit, again, it helps in some of your pass blocking schemes that you would need for Jackson Arnold, especially later in the game when you might want to run some of those deep threats where you've got Brennan Thompson and Deion Burks and Jacquez Petaway, Zion Raggins, or KJ Daniels. Those are all guys that have been stellar in terms of what they're able to do with their track speed in the deep threat. So if you guys haven't already, make sure you guys join the discussion, jump down in the comments below, and give me your thoughts on the running back room for Oklahoma. What you guys think about Javante Barnes? I think this is going to be a very interesting conversation, especially as August 30th is quickly approaching for Oklahoma. And the first home game, it just cannot get here fast enough. So join the discussion. Hey, and if you guys have not already, make sure you hit that like and hit that subscribe button so that I know you guys want more content just like this. Hey, until next time.